Sometimes one text message can blow up your entire life. I'm Peyton. I'm 27. And I sent the stupidest message of my existence during a fight with my boyfriend. But let me back up, because this whole mess started way before that night. Trenton and I had been together for 4 years, living in our cramped apartment for the last 2... Look, I loved him, but lately everything he did annoyed the hell out of me. He'd leave his coffee mug in the sink and forget to pick up groceries, spend money on his fishing gear without asking me first. Normal couple stuff, right? But what really got under my skin was how he'd drop everything for his older brother Dylan. Dylan was 31, and between us, he was everything Trenton wasn't. Where Trenton was this laid-back guy who worked his boring office job and came home to watch Netflix, Dylan had this energy about him. Confident, successful, the kind of guy who commanded attention when he walked into a room. Their dad bailed when Trenton was 12, so Dylan basically raised him, which explained why Trenton worshipped the ground he walked on. Here's what really messed with my head, though. I met Dylan first, 5 years ago at some work event, back when I was single and just looking to have fun. We talked for like an hour about everything and nothing, and there was definitely chemistry there. But then Trenton showed up, Dylan's shy little brother, and he was so obviously smitten with me that Dylan backed off completely. Trenton asked me out that night, and I said yes, because why not? He was cute enough, sweet, and clearly crazy about me. But I always wondered what would have happened if I'd met Dylan when he was single and available. Would we have had something real? Would my life be different now? Those thoughts got louder as Trenton and I started fighting more. Every time he'd rush off to help Dylan with some project or spend his evening at Dylan's place instead of coming home to me, I'd think about how Dylan would probably prioritize his girlfriend. Dylan dated these put-together women who seemed to effortlessly have their lives figured out, while I was stuck arguing with Trenton about whose turn it was to clean the bathroom. The night everything imploded started like any other stupid fight. Trenton texted me that he was stopping by Dylan's after work to help him move some furniture. I was already irritated because we'd planned to grab dinner together. And this was the 3rd time that week he'd chosen Dylan over our plans. When he finally got home around 9, I was fuming. You always choose him over me, I snapped as soon as he walked through the door. That's ridiculous, Peyton. I see him once a week, maybe twice. It's not about how often, it's about priorities. We had plans. It was just dinner. We can order pizza. The dismissive way he said it made my blood boil. Like our plans didn't matter. Like I didn't matter. Whatever. Trenton. I'm done talking about this. I stormed off to our bedroom and slammed the door, my mind racing with all the ways Dylan would have handled this differently. Dylan would have remembered our plans. Dylan would have made me feel like a priority. Dylan was just better. That's when I grabbed my phone and typed out the message that would destroy everything. You know what pisses me off most? Your brother is hotter anyway. I should have chosen him instead when I had the chance. I hit send before I could stop myself, my anger overriding any common sense. For about 30 seconds, I felt vindicated. Let him see how it feels to be second choice. Then my phone was buzzing with his response, and the reality of what I'd done started sinking in. Nat, what did you mean when you had the chance? I stared at the text, my heart pounding. The smart thing would have been to apologize immediately, explain that I was just angry and didn't mean it. But I was still mad, and part of me wanted him to hurt the way I'd been hurting. Nothing. Leave me alone. Did something happen with Dylan? Oh my God. No. I just meant hypothetically if I'd met him first. But even as I typed it, I knew how weak it sounded. Because I had met Dylan first, and Trenton knew it. We'd told that story 100 times. How we met at that work thing. How Dylan introduced us. How romantic it was that Trenton fell for me at first sight. I heard him moving around the apartment. And then everything went quiet. I figured he was cooling off. Maybe sleeping on the couch. We'd fought before. And by morning we'd usually work it out. I had no idea he was screenshotting my message and forwarding it to Dylan with the caption, "Apparently you're her one that got away. You interested?" The next morning, I woke up to an empty apartment. Not just empty like Trenton had left early for work, empty like he'd never lived there. His clothes were gone from the closet, his toothbrush missing from the bathroom, his gaming console vanished from the TV stand. The only thing left was a note on the kitchen counter. "You're right. Dylan is great. I let him know you're interested. Good luck?" I called him immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. Then I called again, and again. By noon, I'd left 17 voicemails and sent 43 texts, ranging from confused to angry to desperate. That's when Dylan texted me. "Hey Peyton, Trenton showed me your message. I'm flattered. Want to grab coffee and talk about it?" My stomach dropped. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. In my head, Trenton would get jealous, realize what he was losing, and fight for me. He wasn't supposed to actually hand me over to his brother like I was some unwanted piece of furniture. I called my mom, spinning the story to make Trenton look like the crazy one. He just left. Mom. Over a stupid text. I was upset and said something dumb, and he completely overreacted. What exactly did you say? Honey. I gave her the sanitized version. But when she asked to see the actual message, I made excuses. Patricia had always liked Trenton, and I knew she'd side with him if she saw what I'd really written. But the worst part was finding out from our mutual friend Craig that this wasn't news to anyone. Apparently, I'd been talking about Dylan for months without realizing how obvious I was being. At girls' nights, I'd compare their personalities. At parties, I'd mention how successful Dylan was, how he had his life together. Craig's girlfriend Jenna told him I'd even said once that I picked the wrong brother when I was a few drinks in. The humiliation was crushing. Everyone knew I'd been pining after Dylan while dating his brother. Everyone knew I'd settled for Trenton because Dylan wasn't available. When Dylan kept texting me, asking about that coffee date, I finally responded. This is insane. Tell Trenton to come home. He's a grown man. Can't tell him what to do. So, coffee or not, I tried calling Trenton's mom, thinking she could talk sense into him. But when I explained the situation, leaving out the part about the text, she seemed confused. Honey, what exactly happened? Trenton says you told him you wanted Dylan instead. It wasn't like that. I was just upset. Can you show me what you wrote? I made up some excuse about deleting it, but I could tell she didn't believe me. When she called back an hour later, her tone was completely different. Peyton, I think you need to leave my sons alone. What you did was cruel. Trenton had shown her the screenshot. My own manipulation tactics were falling apart because the evidence was right there, in black and white. That's when I decided to fight back. If Trenton wanted to play games, I could play games too. I called the police and reported that he'd stolen my Xbox, my TV, and my coffee maker. When they showed up at Dylan's place where Trenton was apparently staying, I was sure they'd force him to come back and talk to me. Instead, Trenton calmly showed them receipts for everything he'd taken. His name was on all the purchases. The officers looked annoyed and told me to stop wasting their time. Next, I tried the financial angle. I sent him a Venmo request for $2, $400. My calculation of his half of utilities for the next 6 months since he'd broken our lease. Never mind that I wasn't on the lease and the utilities were in his name and I was grasping at straws. But I was desperate. His response was swift. The lease you're not on. The utilities in my name. Good luck with that. When I threatened small claims court, he just said go for it. The confidence in his response made me realize how weak my position actually was. Meanwhile, Dylan was still texting me, and his responses were getting under my skin in a different way. He wasn't flirting or trying to win me over. He was just available, responding to my increasingly frantic messages about how inappropriate this all was with calm, logical questions. You said you should have chosen me. I'm single. You're about to be single. What's inappropriate? I was upset. It didn't mean anything. Seemed pretty specific. When I had the chance, implies you had a chance. Stop twisting my words. I'm literally quoting you. The worst part was that he was right. I had meant it when I sent that text. I'd been thinking about him for months, maybe years. But having it thrown back at me like this, having to own up to it, made me feel exposed in a way I hated. That's when I made the stupidest decision yet. I called Trenton's work and told them he was having a mental health crisis, that he'd abandoned shared responsibilities and they might want to check on his stability. I figured if I could make him look unstable, maybe I could force him back home, and his boss called him in. And I waited for the fallout. Surely this would be the wake-up call that made Trenton realize he was throwing away 4 years over one text message. Instead, his boss apparently laughed when Trenton explained the situation and showed him my message. Your ex is calling here because you left her. After, she said, she wanted your brother. That's bold. When I called back the next day to follow up on my concerns, they reported it as harassment. Everything I tried backfired. Every move I made just pushed Trenton further away and made me look more desperate. But I couldn't stop. The idea that he could just walk away from 4 years together over one stupid text felt impossible to accept. 2 weeks after he left, I showed up at Dylan's place at 2 a.m, drunk and furious. I'd been out with friends, trying to forget about everything. But all I could think about was how unfair this whole situation was. I know you're both in there, I screamed, pounding on the door. This is kidnapping. Dylan's voice came through the door, calm and measured. Peyton, you need to leave or I'm calling the police. He's my boyfriend. You stole him. Actually, Trenton's voice joined in. You said you wanted him instead. Remember, I didn't mean it. But the neighbors had already called the cops for them. I got a warning for drunk and disorderly conduct and a humiliating ride home in an Uber while Dylan recorded everything on his phone. My mom called the next morning after Dylan sent her the video. Peyton, honey, what is happening to you? This isn't who I raised. They're conspiring against me. Mom, they're trying to make me look crazy. Baby, you showed up drunk at 2 a.m. screaming about kidnapping. They didn't make you do that. Even my own mother was turning against me. But the final betrayal came when she asked me point blank, did you really tell Trenton you should have chosen Dylan instead? I could have lied. I should have lied. But I was so tired of keeping track of all my different versions of the story. I was angry. Mom, people say things when they're angry. The long pause told me everything. Oh, honey, you need help. Professional help. That's when I decided to take control of the narrative. I posted on Facebook about how Trenton was manipulating me, how he was pimping me out to his brother, how this was all some sick game they were playing. I posted screenshots of Dylan's texts asking me to coffee. But I carefully cropped out my original message. The response wasn't what I expected. Instead of sympathy, I got comments like, girl, what did you actually say to him? And there's definitely more to this story. So Trenton posted the full screenshot, my complete message, with the timestamp showing I'd sent it during our fight, not taken out of context like I'd claimed. The comments were brutal. Imagine fumbling so hard you lose both brothers. She really said she wanted the brother and is mad she got what she asked for. Team Dylan TBH. I deleted everything within an hour, but the damage was done. Screenshots live forever. And now everyone in our social circle knew exactly what I'd done. 3 weeks later, Dylan finally asked me out. I should have been thrilled. This was what I'd wanted, right? But something felt off about the way he asked. Too casual, too confident. Like he already knew how it would end. He picked me up for dinner at Applebee's, which should have been my first red flag. Dylan was the kind of guy who took women to nice restaurants, not chain establishments. And he showed up in sweatpants and a faded t-shirt, looking like he'd just rolled out of bed. The entire dinner was a nightmare. Every time I tried to flirt or steer the conversation toward us, Dylan would redirect back to Trenton, how great Trenton was, how much he missed having his brother around, how any woman would be lucky to have someone so loyal and caring. Did you know Trenton taught himself guitar just to play your favorite song? Dylan asked, showing me a video on his phone of Trenton practicing. That was a long time ago. I said, trying to change the subject. He still plays it. Played it last week. Actually, said it reminded him of better times. It was like being forced to watch a highlight reel of my relationship, while my supposed upgrade date made it clear he thought I'd downgraded by leaving Trenton. When the check came, Dylan didn't even pretend to reach for his wallet. He just sat there while I paid and then walked me to my car in the parking lot. So, I said, leaning in for what I assumed would be our first kiss. This was nice. We should do it again. Dylan stepped back, putting distance between us. Nah, this was just to see what Trenton saw in you. Still don't get it? He walked away, leaving me standing alone in the Applebee's parking lot, humiliated and confused. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Dylan was supposed to want me, to validate that I'd made the right choice, that I deserved better than Trenton. I called Trenton immediately, tears streaming down my face. Your brother is an asshole. Yeah, but he's hot. Right. The sarcasm in his voice cut deep. This isn't funny. Trenton, you ruined everything. I ruined everything. You literally said you wanted him instead of me. It was one text that revealed 4 years of lies. You pursued me to get to him. You settled for me. You told people you picked the wrong brother. What exactly did I ruin? We could have worked through it. Worked through you wanting my brother. How? Threesome at Christmas. I hung up. But his words echoed in my head. Because he was right. And I hated him for it. Over the next month, I completely lost it. I couldn't accept that this was really over. That 4 years could end because of one moment of honesty. I started showing up at places I knew Trenton might be. The grocery store near Dylan's place. The coffee shop he liked. Even his office building. I printed signs and stood outside our old apartment building, trying to tell anyone who would listen that Trenton was a manipulative narcissist who couldn't handle rejection. The landlord called the police, and I got another warning. When that didn't work, I found out where Dylan worked and sent a letter to his HR department, claiming he was engaging in predatory behavior with vulnerable women. They called him in. He showed them our text conversation, and they sent me a cease and desist letter. When I responded with a 3-page manifesto about workplace accountability, they filed a restraining order. I was spiraling, missing work to execute my various schemes to win Trenton back, taking sick days to stake out Dylan's gym. using personal time to make more signs, leaving early to follow up on my legal strategies. Eventually, my boss had enough and let me go, without a job. I couldn't afford the apartment. I had to find a roommate. Some girl named Ashley, who seemed nice enough until she started witnessing my daily breakdowns. I'd created a timeline on our living room wall of everything that had happened, with string connecting photos and printouts of text messages like I was solving a murder. "You need help," Ashley told me one night after finding me screaming at my phone while reading Trenton's old messages. "This isn't normal. You don't understand," I said. "He's being manipulated by his brother. Dylan is preventing us from getting back together. Peyton, you told your boyfriend you wanted his brother instead. He left you. That's not manipulation. That's consequences." Ashley moved out 2 weeks later, but not before warning Trenton that I'd somehow gotten his new address and had it marked on my conspiracy wall. Sure enough, I showed up at his new place a few days later. Not angry this time. I was past anger. I was broken, desperate, ready to say whatever it took to make this right. "Please," I sobbed when he opened the door. "Please just talk to me. I've lost everything. Peyton, you need to leave. I loved you. I did. The Dylan thing was just, I don't know, fantasy. Grass is greener stuff. I didn't mean it. You told your friends you settled for me. I was lying to seem cool. Like I had options. So you either lied to them or you're lying to me now. Either way, we're done." That's when I played my final card. "I'll kill myself if you don't take me back." He didn't even hesitate. He pulled out his phone and called 911, telling them I was threatening self-harm and needed immediate help. Within 20 minutes, paramedics were taking me for a psychiatric evaluation. My mom had to drive 8 hours to pick me up from the hospital. The ride home was silent except for her occasional sighs and the sound of my crying. "You're coming to stay with us for a while," she said finally. "You need help, Peyton. Real help." That was 4 months ago. I'm living in my childhood bedroom now, seeing a therapist twice a week who keeps trying to get me to take accountability for my actions and examine my patterns of behavior. She says I built up this fantasy about Dylan that had nothing to do with reality, that I convinced myself if I'd chosen him, my life would be perfect. Maybe she's right. Maybe I did create this whole elaborate story in my head about how Dylan was better than Trenton, how I deserved more, how I'd made the wrong choice. But knowing that doesn't make it hurt less. The truth is, I check Trenton's social media obsessively. I know he's living alone now, that he joined some pool league, that he seems genuinely happy for the first time in years. I know Dylan is dating someone new, some girl named Monica who thinks our whole story is hilarious. And I know Trenton met someone too. Her name is Veronica. And from what I can see in the photos he posts, she's pretty and normal and probably doesn't spend her time fantasizing about his brother. When Dylan met her, she apparently told him he was all right, but that Trenton was definitely the hotter brother. That should make me angry, but mostly it just makes me tired. Because I had someone who thought I was the most beautiful woman in the world, who would have done anything for Mame, who loved me completely. And I threw it away because I convinced myself I deserved something better. The therapist says I need to forgive myself, but I'm not there yet. Maybe I never will be. What I did was unforgivable, not just the text, but everything that came after, the manipulation, the lies, the harassment, the complete inability to accept that my actions had consequences. Trenton was right about one thing. Sometimes the best revenge is just giving people exactly what they say they want and watching them realize they never wanted it at all. I said I should have chosen Dylan, and I got my chance with him. It lasted exactly one dinner, and it was the most humiliating experience of my life. I wanted Dylan because I thought he was better than Trenton. Turns out, he was better than Trenton. Too good to want someone who would betray his brother like that. The irony is perfect. Really, I lost the man who loved me trying to get the man who could never respect me. 4 months later, I'm still here in my old bedroom, still checking their social media, still wondering what would have happened if I'd just deleted that text instead of sending it. But I know the answer. I would have found some other way to sabotage what I had, because that's who I am. Apparently, someone who destroys good things because she's convinced she deserves better. The worst part is that everyone was right. Trenton was the better choice all along. Not because Dylan isn't great, but because Trenton was the one who chose me. He was the one who loved me, flaws and all, until I made it impossible for him to keep doing it. I lost the best thing that ever happened to me over a text message I sent in anger, and the man I thought I wanted instead made it clear I was never worth wanting at all.